Well, good morning everybody, and you join me on the banks of Shrewsbury Valley Lakes, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. I fished a match here last week and I come third, which is a respectable result, and I drew this peg 34 on Tornado Lake, and while I did alright, I had £73, I was third. To be honest, I should have won, and it was just a few tweaks in my approach, should we say, would have led me to winning. Nothing major, but just a few tweaks. So I wanted to come back today and just try a few things out and just see if I could put that right. Now the basis of my approach on this venue at the moment is pace fishing. Now I love pace fishing. It's a deadly attack, as we all know, and I've done videos here in the past. However, at the moment, because the fishery is so popular at the moment, on the open matches, nearly every peg is taken, which means that the fish, they're on edge, they're not really feeding until the last sort of 90 minutes of the match, maybe the last 2 hours of the match. Those bigger carp are feeding, which obviously with the pace, that's what I'm targeting. However, on this fishery at the minute, there's millions, and I mean little F1s, little crucians, little carp. A lot of them are bred in this lake on their own, and there's loads of them to catch. Now last week on my match I had £73, and I lifted my little fish net out, which I'm fishing great big lumps of paste, big baits, big floats, size 10 hooks, all that sort of stuff, and I still caught 20 odd pound of these little fish. Now they were purely mistakes, and what it sort of got me thinking was, I was sort of £20 off the pace of winning the match. If I actually targeted these fish for the early part of the match, the first 3 hours, when the carp aren't really feeding, would I catch sort of 30, 40 pound of them and give me that sort of, take me on to winning the match? I think it's possible, so I've come today to have a little look, see if I can catch them. Okay, so how am I going to catch these sort of small mixed fish, these carp, these little crucians, these little F1s? To be honest, I still want to fish paste. The reason is it's quite deep, it's a gradual slope out into the middle, and if I fish a top kit and one section on, which I caught a lot of them little fish out last week on my proper paste, it's a nice depth, it's like 4.5 foot, which I think is perfect. Now I've tried fishing soft pellets here in the past, and to be honest, it all becomes a bit of a nightmare, missed bites, foul up fish and stuff. And I've still got to be mindful that at some stage in my match I do need to catch bigger carp. So my thinking is, I always remember Neil Machin, Lee Thornton and anglers like that used to have this little micro, they used to call it pea paste, which is little tiny blobs of paste, only just big enough to cover a size 16 or size 14 hook. Normal rigs, just nice normal sort of pellet style rigs if you like, and fishing it close in on that sort of inside slope, and on harder days it was fantastic. And I just think that today, and on this venue in particular, that could be really good. My thinking is that for the first sort of 2 or 3 hours, I can fish that pea paste, catch the small fish, odd bigger F1, odd carp along the way. And then as the carp, it's obvious that the carp are starting to feed that second half of the match, I can pick up a bigger rig, a more traditional paste rig, and then fish big lumps of paste over the top and try and catch carp. I caught carp there last week late on, and I just think that by combining the two approaches with the paste, I think I could catch a lot of fish. Now, the paste needs to be totally different for this. I'm a big fan of fishing super wet ground bait paste. That's what I fish for carp with. But for these little F1s, you just can't do that. It's too slow. You need a stiff paste that you can swing out with your rig. You don't want any pots on your pole or anything like that. You just want a nice stiff paste that you can mould around the hook. It's quite firm. I can lower it into position, like swing it out, hold it on a tight line on a rig, let it shut up and dink on, everything's perfectly in a tight line. So the paste I've gone for is super simple, and it's just scalded pellets. Basically what I did, I got one of these tubs at home. I did it last night, boiled the kettle, poured however many pellets I thought I needed into an EVA tub, one with a zip on it, and then I poured boiling hot water straight out of the kettle over the pellets, probably so there was about 10 ml of extra water on top of the pellets, so they were fully submerged. I then zipped up the lid, let them soak and let them stand for as long as it took, so probably 2 or 3 hours. And by that time, the pellets are fully broken down, gone into a mush, the water had cooled, the water had been totally absorbed, but the pellets had cooled down. Then it was just a case of popping them in a bag. I sort of mushed them up, I popped them in a little bag, stuck them in the fridge, and just let them do the thing overnight. When you've done that and you put something in a cold environment like that, it tends to restrict it, and by that I mean it gets stiffer and firmer, and what you end up with is a lovely, smooth, sort of stiff paste. I don't know if you can see, I'll get some cutaways of this, but a lovely, smooth, stiff paste. Something I can just mould around that nice hook. I can lower it into place, and it's soft enough to strike through and set the hook. The only feed today that I've got is I've got a bag of fishery 4 mils. Again, I've really soaked these up. Each sort of pellet in there that I've sort of absolutely saturated looks a little bit like a blob of my paste. So I just think that is the perfect feed for this. And then what I'm going to do, I'm not going to kinder pot or throw or anything, because I want to catch these fish hard on the bottom. So every sort of 10-15 minutes, I'm going to put in a nice sort of palmful of these like super wet 4 mils. And I'm just going to pot them in, bang on my bait like that. So the rig for this is nothing out of the ordinary. It's pretty much a typical sort of pellet rig, to be honest with you. Let's start at the top. I've got 13 Dura slip. Now you may think that's heavy for small fish, but I'm fishing my top 2 and 1 section on. And ideally what I want to do with these small fish is not break down. And having this 13 allows me to set the hook through this stiff paste, and in one smooth motion I can come back and net the fish. So I'm never actually breaking down unless it's sort of a 2-pounder. And that 13 is perfect. It just strikes the right balance. As you can see, I've got a really short line. That's 4 inches, which is the venue rules. And then I've got a 4x14 F1 pellet. It's like I say, it's a decent depth, and I want it to be nice and stable. So the wire stem and the 4x14 is about perfect. Shotting wise, I've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think they're number 8s, but they could be number 9s, I'm not sure. And then I've got a couple of little trimmers. They're just spread out about 1 inch apart, just a typical sort of pellet rig really. But what I'm trying to do with this, I've plumbed up right on the end of my section. This lake's quite unique in that from the bank here all the way out to the middle, it's a continual gradual slope. So you can literally pick, there's no like ledges or anything like that. I saw it when it was empty, and it's just a continual gradual slope. So my thinking is, I'll plumb up probably that far short at the end of my pole, swing the paste out past the pole tip and hold it there. Well, it'll be sort of there, hold it tight, let it swing in towards me, and then as the float sort of settles and I know the paste is on the bottom, I'll just relax the pole by pushing it out a little bit further. The float will pop up, and I know that everything is perfectly in a tight line. This just means that as soon as one of those little F1s picks up my little blob of paste, I'll get that really sharp, fast bite, and hopefully I'll be into one. And I just think that shotting pattern just makes everything as direct as possible. Onto the hook length. It's 0.13. It's one of the pre-tied ones actually. It's an SFLB, a size 14. Nice thin but big hook. As I say, I'm going to wrap just a pea-sized bit of paste around that, and this fine, like razor sharp hook should allow me to whack it through it. And that is it, a simple rig, nothing out of the ordinary, but it's how I fish that's probably going to be a little bit different to the norm. Right then, we've got everything set up, it's super simple. I'm going to kick off the swim. Like I say, I'm going to feed everything through the big pot today. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put, I don't know, I wouldn't like to count, but a nice palm full of these 4 mil pellets. I've picked a spot on the far bank. Interestingly, because these are adjustable cupping kits, I've actually set it up so it's about 8 inches short of my pole tip. I don't really want to push the fish past if I can help it. If anything, I want them to come closer in as the day progresses. So I feel like if I just feed a little bit shorter and then present my hook bait a little bit past, I think it's going to avoid foul looking and all that business. So nice and accurate. I've got a nice far bank marker, a nice tree. Put the bait in nice and quietly, and that's it. Now, because I want to be fast and smooth and efficient, I've actually got 2 number 3 sections out of my bag. So I've got one with the cupping kit all, attached at all times, and I've got one I'm going to use for fishing. Just a little thing, but as I'm, when I'm in the heat of battle, so to speak, I can just pick it up and feed without even thinking about taking my top kit off or anything like that. So, when we're in match mode, these little percents add up. So Let's get the rig. It's just shotted like a normal rig. It's not undershotted like a standard paste rig would be or anything like that. As you can see, hopefully, unless I start nailing some big F1s, hopefully, you know, this will just stay on at all times. So I'll just bring it back, put it on my knee. I'm just gonna grab a piece of paste, just a tiny little bit, wet my fingers first, and just wrap it around. Dead simple. This sort of micro paste fishing in miniature. Get to this point, it's like a pivot point, I suppose. So my rig's there, I can swing it out, it goes past. I hold it on a tight line, just short of the end of the pole tip, allow everything to come in on like a pendulum. So everything's perfectly tight, the float's gone under. I can go out just a little bit more and everything's set perfectly now. My float's visible and I've just got to wait for a bite. So everything is as tight as it can be. So as soon as a fish picks up that paste, I'm going to know about it. Now reading the bristle is essential with this. You know, they're only small fish, so obviously with pellets and stuff, obviously if you miss a bite, you get a second chance. With this, you don't. So look at that, lovely in the top lip. He's actually pooing out my pellets. So it's so important to just take your time and read your bristle when you're doing this. Make sure the fish is on. Because it's paste, they sort of hang on to it a bit more than they would, say, expander pellets. So you do get a few seconds. Make sure it's on before striking. So I hold it pretty much where the top kit and the number 3 joins together. It gives me the perfect place to sort of pendulum my rig out, and in one smooth motion, out it goes. Hold it on a tight line. Comes back towards me. And then once it hits the bottom, relax the pole. And that is perfectly presented. The short line allows me to just be on the fish as soon as it takes the bait. Just like any paste fishing, I'm looking for a really sharp under. And as you can see, it's a really fast way of fishing. You don't assume that paste is sort of any good for these smaller fish, but trust me, when you can catch them close in like this, it can be the best way. And they're nice fish. They're probably 2 to the pound at that size. I think like this little method could be a real great addition to my overall weight. It's nothing, it's nothing spectacular. It's nothing like, I'm not going to win the match doing this, but it will help. I think it's a nice piece of the jigsaw that may really help out on my next match here. Nice little F1. As you can see, we're catching really nicely now. They're like lovely chunky fish. But they were an absolute pain when I was fishing big pace last week. So the fish are starting to settle now, catching them really quickly. We'll talk about that elastic. Hopefully you can see what I mean now. I'm trying to catch them quick. Don't want to break down, and this 13, if I was using an 11 or something like that, it'd just be too light, really. They'd be pulling too much of it out, making it difficult to sort of net them in one go. So there really isn't any rush when fishing like this. You can get a bit flustered trying to catch these little fish, and although, you can go like Billy-O trying to catch them, I think it's best just trying to be nice and smooth. Nice little curry. Just be nice and smooth. Keep coming back with a fish. Don't do anything drastic. And keep an eye on the other anglers. If this was a match today, I'd be watching the other anglers. Safe in the knowledge that, every 3 fish I'm sort of putting a pound in the net. Okay, so that's the approach kind of explained. The paste, the rig, all that business. Showing you how I'm going to do it. And now I'm going to set myself a little 1 hour target. See if I can see what sort of weight I catch in an hour of these little fish. I kind of feel like in the match I've probably got 2.5 hours to do it. So I need to work out how to quickly catch enough fish in that time span. So we'll set that timer and we'll see how many of these beautiful little F1s we can catch in 1 hour. So, just finished my power hour on the micro paste, and it's gone really well. I've had 47 fish. I actually counted them, which is unlike me, but I counted them. Little crusions, F1s, and they're averaging out about 3 to the pound. Sometimes you catch some better ones. I've had some pounders today. I've even had an odd £2 F1, but the fishing's really good. And to be honest, the fish are probably a bit dumpier than I thought. They look about 4 to the pound, but they're definitely not. They're dumpy little fish. And we're catching really nicely, just smooth, no rush. And it's quite interesting because I've had loads of these little crusions, which are lovely fish. I mean, what's that, 6 ounces probably? Something like that, lovely little fish. Loads of them, loads of these F1s. But I have made a few tweaks to my approach, which I'll tell you about now before the end of this video. But what I am pleased with is how well it's gone, as in it's a windy day, you know, it's towing like mad today. It'd be difficult to present soft expanders today, but this pace, because it anchors it to the bottom, presentation's good, the fish love it, and the swim gets better and better because essentially you're feeding a little knob of ground bait every chuck in. So loads of little, beautiful little F1s like that. Fish that, to be honest, on other methods are a bit of a nuisance, but the fact that I've caught 47 in an hour, and I'm not, you know, I haven't got it sorted by any means. I'm getting there now, I'm getting to the bottom of it. Really encourages me for having, you know, a good bit of success in matches. I think, I say the target weight here at the minute is sort of 90 to 100 pound at the moment to win, maybe even as low as 80 on some days. And if I could catch 40 pound of these fish, it'd be a great way to spend the first half of the match. And the thing is, they're everywhere. Anglers moan about them every match, so there's plenty of them about. Just that 13 elastic, so nice because I can just not bully them, just nice and smooth. Come back with one on every single go. Obviously you're going to miss an odd bite, but on the whole it's been really good. Now I've made a few alterations. First with my rig, I've now got the whole bulk straight above the hook length, which is a 6-inch hook length. It just allows me to read my bristle a bit better. I'm getting a lot of little lifts, and obviously it really shows up. When it's a solid bulk like that, it pops up really obviously. So that's one tweak, and another tweak is to do with the feeding. I've not fed much bait at all. But what I am doing now, instead of potting in loose 4 mils, I'm actually potting in, it's a better fish. Might have to take my section off for this one. Instead of feeding the loose 4 mils, which was actually bringing them off the bottom, I'm feeding rock hard balls now, almost like a ball of ground bait sort of thing. Might be a carp this, and this is what I'm talking about. You know, if you can catch a few of these as well, and surely you're onto a bit of a winner. Yeah, nice little carp. Nice bonus fish. Probably the fish to end on, to be fair. Look at that. Yes, exactly what I wanted to happen. So we've caught all of those F1s, crucians, and then as the session's progressing, I've got my first carp, and I'm sure that if I fished on now for another hour or so, these have become more and more beautiful carp like that. I mean, it's two and a bit pound, that one. Real chunky fish. And that seems like a good place to finish the fishing. So yeah, so what I did, I changed the feed in a little bit, and as opposed to the loose 4 mils that I were feeding, what I'm doing now, I'm feeding a really hard ball, almost like a ball of ground bait. Essentially it's a ball of paste in itself. So that'll break down, it'll get straight to the bottom, break down slowly, and keep them fish rooted to the bottom where I can catch them. Presentation wise, it's been simple. That flicking it out worked early in the session, but I found it best in the end to swing it out and lower the float in. That just kept me in touch at all times. I've been trying to keep a tight line because I've got that short line between the float and the pole tip. Trying to keep a tight line between the two, and often you can feel a little bang on the tip, striking is on. The 13 elastic's about right. Early in the session, an 11 would have been better, definitely. But now the fish are feeding well. I've got the feeding sorted, got them on the bottom, everyone. I can hook it, nice and steady, ship it in, beautiful. And that's it. A great little method. I'm sure there's loads of venues up and down the country where this sort of approach would work. It's not a bagging method. It's not where you're not, if your venue you go to, you're fishing for £200 all the time. This is not the approach for that. You're better off fishing shallow on the margins or whatever. But on a place like this, where £80, £90 a target, and basically I'm looking to fill in the blanks and build the swim for later in the session, I think micro paste is well worth a try.